I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for your big game preview. USC is set to take on Kansas in the second round of the NCAA tournament, 6:40 on Monday on CBS. Shotgun, I don't know the exact terminology we should use here. Maybe it's a COVID reschedule, COVID rematch. USC was supposed to take on Kansas in December of 2020. Now they meet in March Madness. What do you expect from this Kansas team?
Yeah, it was going to be a unique matchup, giving Evan Mobley a chance on the national stage. Well, hey, you're definitely going to get it now. It's the last game of the day, the last game of the second round for all the games. So Evan Mobley is going to be on center stage, I believe, on Monday, given his chance to go up against a Kansas team, a perennial blue blood program. Kansas is not the same Kansas that you maybe used to seeing. They don't have the same star power, but they are a dynamic defensive team. So it'll be an interesting matchup between the two defenses there. And how will they try to slow down Evan Mobley? They got David McCormack back today. He flew into Indianapolis on Friday and was able to play on Saturday. Had a big game against Eastern Washington to help them get to the second round. They're going to have a similar situation on Monday. Jalen Wilson is going to be able to fly in on Monday morning and is going to be able to play with the team. At least that's what is expected as long as he tests negative the next couple of days. Both those guys had COVID. What kind of impact does that have on them? We saw McCormick was really tired after a lot of the stretches that he played today. So, having to face off against Evan Mobley and Isaiah Mobley down low, what kind of impact will that have? Definitely some interesting storylines. But for USC, it's a great opportunity to play on the national stage, playing against a perennial blue blood, like I said. And, they'll get to make up that game that wasn't able to play in December. Now they get an opportunity on an even bigger stage. They'll play it at Hinkle Fieldhouse, which is why I got the Butler hat on. The home of the Butler Bulldogs. They'll play there. So, it's a different venue for both teams. No one is playing the same venues from the first round to the second round. So, you have to get used to a different backdrop, different environment to shoot in. So we'll see which team can knock down some shots in this game.
As you mentioned, Kansas has been struggling with some COVID-19 issues. How much do you expect that to impact the game and which players they can use?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the interesting point is because McCormick is a center for them. Jalen Wilson is a forward. So that's two guys. If USC can actually, force feed the ball down low and try to attack those guys, just the wear and tear of playing against, big guys down low could tire them out. And then, you add on the potential of the COVID and, what impact does it have? Because it's different on each individual. Is Jalen Wilson, when he arrives, it's not only that he's got the COVID and he's been dealing with that, but also you're flying on the day of game and then trying to get, you're reunited with your teammates. You haven't practiced for the entire week while the team has been out in Indianapolis. So there are going to be some challenges for those two guys to kind of fit in. But McCormick had a really big game today. He's averaged more than 16 points per game their last 13. He missed the Big 12 tourney, as the team did. So it's going to be important for USC to try to slow him down, try to force some of their wings to make some big shots. They did against Eastern Washington, but I think that's what you got to do again against them. Eastern Washington gave them some wide open looks. If USC forces some tough shots on the outside, I think they got a good chance to slow the Kansas offense down that scored 93 points on Saturday in their first round game.
Now, both teams are strong defensively. In that case, for the Trojans, how important it will be for them to start fast? I know they've started slow sometimes. It's kind of been their formula this season, but that seems like they can't get away with it necessarily this time around.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really important for both teams to try to get out to an early start and get some confidence. I think that's a big thing for USC in particular, is just getting some confidence against a team like Kansas to say, hey, we belong here. Against Drake, they got out to a great start. They had a little bit of a lull a little bit later, but they were pretty consistent with their offense of attack. I think against Kansas, you just want to get the kind of those jitters out of the way early, just because no one except for Chavez Goodwin had played in a NCAA tournament game before Saturday. So I think, going up against a team like Kansas with the name cachet that they have, I think it's a much different approach. I think you want to get out there, okay, let's knock down a couple shots and get in the flow. And I think that would be really important for USC to be able to win this game against Kansas.
You mentioned USC's matchup against Drake. I was going to ask you, did you learn anything from both teams in their first round matchups on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've seen Kansas in a while. They went through a really rough stretch in the middle of the season. I think they lost like 4 or 5, 6 games in a 8, 9 game stretch. They've won 8 of 9 though, and their only loss was in overtime to Texas. Now that's interesting to me because they lost to Texas earlier in the season. They got blown out by them. But Texas is a team that's probably the most similar to USC from the Big 12, just with their length and the way they play defense. So I think it's interesting that they've lost to Texas twice. So that's something to keep an eye on. Will their length now Kansas has great size and length themselves, but playing against it versus having it on your team are two different things. So how will they adjust to playing against it? USC's length and size definitely gave Drake fits the entire game. So I think it's something to keep an eye on. How will that affect teams that don't have time to prepare, with Texas only having 24 hours, 48 hours to prepare for USC? Can they get in the right mind to go up against a team like that, or will it frustrate them the way it did Drake, who only shot 19% in the second half of that game as USC was kind of able to pull away? The one thing in the Kansas game I noticed was Eastern Washington, they had a pair of brothers themselves, and their brothers went for 58 points in that game. So how will the Mobley brothers do? It's a similar, it's a little bit different combination of brothers, but both of those, the Eastern Washington's brothers could play inside and outside. So I think that's an interesting thing. They shot a little bit more threes. They could hit the outside shot a little bit better than the Mobley brothers, but can the Mobley brothers bring out some of those post players outside, because they were able to get wide open shots, Eastern Washington was, because the big guys on Kansas couldn't get out to defend against them. Now, Kansas got plenty of wide open shots as well against Eastern Washington, because Eastern Washington had to double every time that David McCormick caught the ball down low. So can USC play man to man and keep those guys from getting those open looks? Can they man up against the post players down low and keep them from getting going? I think that's a big difference between what Eastern Washington was able to do versus what USC can do. And Kansas is not great shooting from the outside. Now their leading scorer, Ochai Ajabaji, is at 14.2 points. He can hit some shots. They've got 4 guys. They had 5 guys finish in double figures against Eastern Washington. They got 4 guys that average double figures, but most of their scoring comes inside rather than outside. Marcus Garrett stepped up and had a really big game for him and knocked down some threes. If he does that against USC, it could be a long day, but he's not really a 3-point shooter. So he's a guy that USC may try to leave open and see if he can do it 2 games in a row.
All right, Shotgun, in your opinion, what are the keys to the game for the Trojans?
I think the first thing is just initiating the offense. I talked about Marcus Garrett making some threes. Well, he and DeJuan Harris are elite perimeter defenders. They're 2 of the best in the country, and they really cause a lot of havoc in the backcourt. So can USC's guard, can Taj Edey, Ethan Anderson, Drew Peterson, can they get USC into their sets? And if Garrett and Harris are really up on them tight, can they go by them, get in the lane, and create for themselves? But then also, if the big step up, then create for other people. That's how USC's offense a lot of times is. It can boil down to one-on-one basketball at times, and with those guys being able to get into the lane and create. So can they do it against Garrett and Harris? That'll be an interesting matchup for me. Whereas Kansas's best defenders on the outside, USC's are on the inside, and that's where Kansas's offensive strength is. So can USC, can they make it tough on McCormick? Can they make it tough on Jalen Wilson when he's back? He can shoot some outside shots as well, but I think USC can get out and defend their bigs much better than Kansas was doing against Eastern Washington this game. So I think it's going to be a very intriguing matchup just because of some of the battles that will be taking place. But then again, the one thing it goes back to I think that USC really has to pay attention to is rebounding. They struggled against Drake. They lost the rebounding margin. They won for the first time this season when they've lost the rebounding margin. But Kansas is going to do all the fundamental stuff, boxing out. They're going to make sure that they get rebounds. Not going to give USC a lot of offensive opportunities, but they will try to create their own offensive rebounds. So that's something that USC has to do a much better job than they did against Drake.
Alrighty, Shotgun, it is prediction time. How do you think this one's going to go on Monday?
Oh, no, not predictions. I think that, this is going to be a lower scoring affair, which brings free throw shooting into perspective much, much more, where 1 point can change the outcome. Just watched, late night Saturday, watched Abilene Christian. Their guy steps up. He shoots 58%, knocks down 2 free throws to win them the game with 1.2 seconds left. Can someone from USC do that? Now, they shot a little bit better in the second half against Drake. They made 5 of their last 6 in the second half, but overall, they shot about 53%. They struggled all season long. Are they going to step up and make free throws? Because that's what it could come down to in this game. So that's going to be a big key for them. They're actually favored, an early favorite in this game, even though they're the lower seed. They're the 6th seed versus the 3 seed. USC is favored in this, and KenPom actually has them as the number 9 team now. So they're actually favored in the KenPom rankings as well. I'm going with USC. I think it's going to be a close one, and the free throw shooting really worries me, but I think they find a way to get the win and advance to their first Sweet 16 under Andy Enfield.
Very nice. Okay, good to see you actually putting some predictions on the line there, Shotgun. That's going to wrap it up for your big game preview. Be sure to check out the game Monday on CBS, 6:40 PST. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out USCfootball.com.